Simplifying expressions. When simplifying equations, remember that there is always a 1 in front of parentheses that has no number. And there's always a 1 in front of a variable that has no number. It is important to always use order of operations when simplifying. And lastly, distributive property falls into the multiplication step. Example 1. Here we have an expression that we're going to have to use distributive property twice. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. So we have a 4. We're first going to have to multiply it by the 1x. Then we're going to have to multiply 4 times 5y. And then 4 times negative 1. So let's go ahead and do that first. So we have 4 times 1x, which is equal to 4x. Now 4 times 5 is equal to 20. Y. Then we have 4 times negative 1. Don't forget that negative. It's very important. So we have 4 times negative 1. So that's negative 4. Now let's go ahead and look at this negative 3. Notice we have a negative in front of the 3. So we will multiply that by each term inside the parentheses. So we will multiply negative 3 times x, negative 3 times 2, and negative 3 times negative 5y. So let's go ahead and solve. So negative 3 times x. Remember that any time there is no number in front of a variable, it's just 1. So 3 times 1 is equal to 3, but it's negative. So we will do this. We'll do this plus negative 3x. Now we have negative 3 times 2. So that equals negative 6. Now negative 3 times negative 5y is equal to positive 15y. So now what we do next is we combine like terms. So we have this 4x and this negative 3x. We'll just put one line underneath to know that we need to add those two. Then we have 2y's, and then we have just a number twice. So let's add all those together. So we have 4x minus 3x is equal to 1x. Next, let's go to add 20 plus 15y is equal to 35y. Now here we have negative 4 times negative 6. What we can do is just add the two numbers together, 4 plus 6, which is 10, and then remember that we have a negative sign in front of it. So we have negative 10. And this would be our final solution. Solve for the following. Here we have distributive property again on two different accounts that we're going to have to do. So let's first do the first one. So we're going to multiply this 2 times this 3x squared, then times this negative 5x, and then we're going to go times 2. So here we have 2 times 3x squared, so that gets us 6x squared. Next we have 2 times this negative 5x, so that equals negative 10x. Then we have this 2 times this other 2, which is equal to plus 4. We'll just put this in parentheses to understand that we are done with this now. So now we see a negative sign in front of the parentheses. It is understood that there is a 1 out in the front. So that could be rewritten as minus 1, then times, well, go minus 1 times 2x squared, and then minus 1 times 5x, and then minus 1 times 7. So let's go ahead and do the first term first. So we have negative 1 times 2x squared. So that gives us to negative 2x squared. Now we have minus 1 times 5x, which is equal to minus 5x. Then we have this negative 1 times the 7, so that equals negative 7. So now let's go ahead and reduce this into simpler terms as we can combine a few of these terms. So we can combine this x squared here and this x squared here together. Then we have negative 10x and we have this negative 5x. Then we have this 4 minus 7. So let me rewrite this as like this. So you can see this, that we're adding these together. Okay, so now we've rewritten it. So let's go ahead and do with this first two terms. So 6 minus 2 is equal to 4x squared. Then we have minus 10 minus 5. So that equals, we'll just drop that first positive sign and we'll just leave it as minus 15x. Then we have 4 minus 7. Now, what we can do is we can go 7 minus 4, but we know we need to keep the sign of the larger number. So that will give us to negative 3, or we can just say minus 3. Or we can write as 4x squared plus minus 15x plus minus 3. So whichever method you prefer to write your solution, go ahead and write that down, as WODMAP will take either of these answers.